Good morning to all the students. So yesterday we have started a new concept on hashing. We have gone through various introductory concepts related to hashing, like what actually is hashing and why do we require hashing, and what are the various hash functions we have, and what are the basic requirements for a good hash function. And then we have discussed the various types of hash function, right? So in today's class we'll again discuss the concept of these types of hash function, as the recording for these types of hash function is missing in the last class. So I start my session today with these types of hash function. We'll quickly go through these types of hash function, and then we'll discuss what this hash table is, right? And then we'll go through one of the important topic related to this hashing in data structures, that is collision. We'll discuss what a collision is and what are the various ways of handling the collision, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each and every technique we use for this collision handling mechanism. All these things we'll discuss, and then we'll finally summarize the things, and then we'll close this chapter, right? So this is how I have planned for today's session. So let me quickly start the topic of types of hash function, right? So what are the basic requirements of the hash function?
Sir, easy to compute and uniform distribution less collisions, sir.
Right. So the hash function that you take should be easy to compute. It should not be like an algorithm which involves a lot of steps, and it should provide less number of collisions. And similarly, whatever values you have, those values should be uniformly distributed. So that is the basic requirement of any hash function you take. As I told, that a hash function is nothing but a mathematical function, right? You take any hash function, somebody will come and he will take some hash function h1 which involves the modulo division, and somebody may take another hash function which involves some other operation. Like that, anybody can take any operation, but if the hash function that you have selected follows or satisfies the requirements of the good hash function, then we say that you have developed or you have specified a good hash function. So this is the basic requirement. So some of the very interesting and very frequently used hash functions are, the first and foremost thing is a division method. Don't assume that this is a normal division, it is a modulo division, right? So we call it as a modding operation. So for example, you can take the hash function h of x as x modulo some n, where n can be any number, right? For example, I can take n is equal to 10. So this is my hash function. What is x here? What is x here?
Integer, sir.
It is an integer, or the value which you want to store inside the hash table. That is the actual value which you are dealing with the hashing, right? So for example, I have a number called 23. So I pass this, therefore x becomes 23 here. So I pass this 23 to the hash function. So h of 23 is equal to 23 mod 10. What is the value?
3, sir.
3.
3.
Right. So that 23 value has to be inserted into an index or at a key called 3. At a key 3. Similarly, if I have a number called 55, now this becomes my x. If I apply this hash function, it becomes h of 55, that is equal to 55 modulo 10, which is equal to 5. So I should insert this 55 at the fifth key. This is how the hash function is defined, and this is called as a modding function or division function, right? So this modding function can also be used to make the value limited to the range of indices of the particular array which you have defined. For example, I have defined an array. Here the array is nothing but the hash table. We will discuss what this hash table is. Hash table is nothing but a data structure which is used to store the values, right? So we may, in general, we make use of the arrays to implement the hash tables. That is the relationship between the hash table and arrays, right? So when I say arrays, you just imagine that it is nothing but a hash table. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So if I take array, I will have these index numbers. So 23, I got the key as 3, therefore I should insert this 23 at the index 23 at 3. And 55, I got the key value as 5, therefore I should insert 55 at the key value 5 at the index 5. Right. So this is how the modding operation is done. And one more important point regarding this modding is, as I told, that this particular modding function is used to map the arbitrary data set of values to a fixed set of indices. So I have a fixed set of indices where my index set here is ranging from 0 to 5. But these values, this 23, 55 and these values which I want to insert into the hash table are arbitrary number and they are unlimited. So in such case, I will make use of this particular mapping mechanism where I should map the arbitrary set of values into a fixed set of index numbers. For that purpose also I will be using this modding function, right? So and when we make use of this modding function, one important point you should remember is, we are dividing or you are modulo operating the value with n, right? And there are some mathematical proofs which prove that the n should be prime. It's not we should not say that it should be prime, but it will give results, it will give best results when the denominator is taken as a prime number, right? Instead of taking the composite number, you prefer to take the denominator as the prime number, so that you will get a good hash function that will satisfy the requirements of a good hash function, such as less collisions, easy to compute and uniform distribution, right? So this is all about the division method which we will be using for the calculation of hash values. That means it can be treated as a hash function. And the second method is a folding method. The second hash function is a folding method where we will take the number and we will fold it. Folding means nothing but we will first divide the given number into equal number of parts, and then we will add it, and whatever result we get, that will be taken as the key to insert the value into the hash table, right? So shift folding means you will take the entire number and then you will divide it into equal parts. In the previous class also I have given one example of Aadhaar number, right? Any Aadhaar number, it consists of 12 digits. So this is my Aadhaar number. I can divide this Aadhaar number, which consists of 12 digits, into 3 digits of 4 parts of 3 digits each, or 4 digits of 3 parts each. So I divide like this, and then I combine this one, 3501 plus 7298 plus 7712, and then I will add this. The resultant value which I get will be the key. I can take like this, right? And similarly, there is another variant of this folding which is called as the boundary folding, where the first part lies same. That means you need to divide the given number into equal number of parts, but you will be folding the boundaries, right? That means you will keep the boundaries as it is, but you will interchange the middle part, right? And remember that this for example, if you take this number, so 1 2 3 is one part, 4 5 6 is another part, and 7 8 9 is another part. So what I did here in this example, what I have done is, I have taken the first part 1 2 3 as it is, and the last part 7 8 9 as it is, and the middle part I am swapping. That means I am folding them, I am making the numbers to swap, right? It is not restricted that you always boundary fold the middle number only. You can boundary fold this 1 2 3 also. So this becomes 3 2 1 plus this is remains as it is 6 5 4 plus this can, the last part 7 8 9 can also be boundary folded, such that you will get 9 8 7. So you can also take this particular scenario also, or this particular example also, right? Like that, there is no restriction on how you implement the hash function. But the only thing you should keep it in mind is that hash function should satisfy the basic requirements for the hash function, which you have just studied well, right? Is it clear? And remember that this folding method involves the bitwise operations, which involves the XOR operation, right? When you want to fold a given large value, then you need to divide it into numbers, and the operator that is best suited for this folding method is the XOR operator. XOR operator, which comes under the category of bitwise operators, right? So this is all about the folding method. Did you get that point? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
And
sir.
so this is the third for hash function.
Sir, but how to fold, sir, if 4 digits, if you consider your Aadhaar number, sir?
Yeah, that
We
part.
have 4 numbers in middle, no, sir?
Yeah. I will tell you when we come across the programming part. I think you have the program related to these hash functions. So who is dealing the lab part?
Sir, for each week the faculty is changing, sir. Kiranmay madam, Priyadarshini madam and all.
Right. So I will discuss these things, Amma. I will discuss this through programming. Through programming, you can understand well, right? So don't worry. I will tell how we can fold these things, all these things. Is it clear up to this point? You just remember the methodology which is going to be implemented there, right? And how we are going to program and how we are going to divide all these things. We'll discuss once we go through the programming part. And I don't want to discuss all the programs related to hashing. You have the doubt on this folding method, so that I will explain this folding method whenever there is time, right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. And Ajay, you have sent me the code, and I will definitely go through that code, and I will clear your doubt also. Don't worry. I need some time.
Okay, sir.
So coming back to our discussion, point of discussion, the types of hash function. The third hash function which I am going to discuss is the mid square function. The name itself is saying that you are going to take the hash function by squaring the given value and by taking the middle part of the square of the given number. That is very clear, right? So for example, if I take the 3121 is my key value, first the first step I should do is I should square this number. So 3121 into 3121, I will perform this, and the resultant number I got is 9740641, right? So I can take the middle part, 406. So 406 will be the key to store the 3121, right? So this is how you perform the mid square operation, right? And as I told that when all these things we are discussing, the mid square function, the folding function, and the division method, whatever hash functions we have taken, we are going to apply the functions on integers only. But you may get a doubt, sir, how do we deal with the strings, or how do we deal with the characters? So in such case, you have to convert those strings into characters. We have some examples in the coming slides. We'll see how we are going to deal this, right? So whenever you are given a string and you are asked to store it in a array using the hashing technique, then what you have to do is you have to apply the hash function. But hash functions are defined on the integers only. So the simple method is you convert the given string into the numbers or the integers, and then you apply the hash function, and then you will store the value into the corresponding key that is generated by the hash function. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. And the last of two functions which I am going to discuss in these types of hash function is, one is the fourth, which is extraction. Fourth one is extraction. As the name itself is saying that you need to extract some portion of the given value in order to identify the key. So key is nothing but you will be extracting some portion of the key, some portion of the value. It's not key, right? So and I have given one example, right? When you extract the things, the difference between this particular hash function and the previous ones, which is nothing but the mid square, folding and division method, is in mid square method and folding method and in division method we are going to involve each and every digit in the number, right? We are going to involve each and every digit in the value to calculate the hash values. But here in the extraction part, for example, I have 350172987712. Let us take my Aadhaar number and I apply the extraction method on this particular Aadhaar number, where I wrote a code in such a way that I extract the middle part, middle 4 digits of the Aadhaar number, right? But the disadvantage of this extraction is we are not involving the entire value to calculate the hash values. This will have some problems. For example, if you consider extracting the middle 4 digits only, then if you consider the entire India population and the entire Aadhaar card information, so we will get a lot of people or lot of individuals will be there where their Aadhaar numbers consist of 7298 as the middle portion, right? So this is the disadvantage we have. So in order to avoid this, what the Aadhaar is suggesting is, whenever we have these type of things, it is better that you extract a part of the value which forms unique keys for each and every value, right? For example, I have taken your registration number, right? It is 20021A0501. If I take 2002, it will be common for all the students. It is 20 is related to the year of admission and 02 is the college code and 1A is the course code. So if I take 2002, it is not, if I extract 2002, it is not giving unique values for the unique keys for the values, right? So this portion cannot be taken. Similarly, if I take 20021, it is also not giving the unique keys. Similarly, I take 20021A, it is also not giving the unique keys, right? So if I take 0501, if I extract this portion, the last 4 digits of the value, then this particular portion of the value is giving unique values or unique keys. Unique keys are generated for all the values. So this is how we need to select the portion of the value which you need to extract. Remember a simple point, that extraction should always result in generating unique keys for the given values. That is the only point you should remember, right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And the last
Yes, sir.
one, which is very rarely used hash function, is the radix transformation, where you are going to transform the base of the number or base of the value which you are going to store. For example, if you are given a decimal number, you will be converting it into some other format and then you apply the same modular division by size. What is this size here? It is nothing but the table size, right? This is very important. So when we perform this mod operation, we have one more advantage that I will tell you when we come across this particular topic in the coming slides, right? So mod operation is very much useful in calculating the hash values or hash keys, right? So this is one of the important, it's not that important, it is one of the technique that is used to implement the hash functions, right? So this is all about the hash functions. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So let us take an example and let us discuss how a hash function need to be selected, right? So if I need to have a good hash function, that hash function should satisfy the basic requirements, which is nothing but less collisions, easy to compute, and what is the third one?
Uniform distribution.
Super. Uniform distribution, right? So let us take four values. So I'm taking these four strings: A B C D E F, B C D E F A, C D E F B A B, and D E F A B C. I want to store these strings. Let me have assume that there are many strings inside this set of values. That means there are a lot of strings inside this set, but for my example I am considering only four keys, four values. It's not keys, don't get confused, right? So A B C D E F, and all these four strings I am taking. This is first one, and this is second one, this is third one, and this is fourth one. Now let us assume I have defined a hash function 1 and I am naming it as h1, which is nothing but how I am going to calculate this h1 means, as I told that whenever you have the strings, you should find a method such that the strings are converted into integers, and then you can apply the hash function, right? Here the hash function which I am applying is nothing but modulo 599. What is this 599? Why I have taken 599 only? There is no need to justify why it is 599. You tell me what is this 599?
Table size.
Super, right? So this is table size. I am just taking it as a random number, that's it, right? So I have to divide the number x modulo division 599, where 599 represents the table size. So I need to find this x. I cannot divide the strings with integers, so I need to convert these strings into integers. So how I am going to do here is, in the first hash function, what I am doing is I am taking the ASCII values and I am adding them, and whatever the result I get, I will take it as the value of this particular string. So what is the ASCII value of lowercase a?
97.
97, right? After that we have b as 98, and this is 99, and this is 100, and this is 101, and this is 102. Now tell me what is the addition of all these numbers? 97 plus 98 plus 99 plus 100 plus 101 plus 102, right? 100, this is 200, this is 200, 500, 597. Am I right or not?
Yes, sir.
So you divide this 597 divided by 599, modulo division 599, you will get some result. Forget about the result, right? So let us tell me what is the result. Let us discuss what this result is.
97.
597 divided by 599 means it is 597. So this A, B, C, D, E, F should be stored inside an index which is equal to 597, right? Now let us go with the other string. What is the other string we have? B, C, D, E, F, A. Now if you find the equivalent number for this string, what is the equivalent number? It is 98, and this is 99, this is 100, 101, 102, and this is 97. Again this is resulting to a 597 value only. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now if I apply this hash function 597 modulo division 599, the result is again 597. And if you take this string and calculate the equivalent integer for this string, it is also totaling to 597. If I apply the hash function 597 modulo division 599, again the result will be 597. So every time for all these strings, we are getting a common key which is 597. The result will be same for this also. Why? Because the string remains the same. We are just interchanging the positions of the letters, that's it. But the number of letters and the letters that are represented, that are used to represent the strings, remains the same. So all of them result in the same value, and hence all of them will be pointing to the same index number, which is 597, right? We are getting collisions. So A, B, C, D, E, F is pointing to 597. If I calculate the hash key for this B, C, D, E, F, A, again I am getting 597, therefore it is a collision. And C, D, E, F, A, B, again I am getting 597, this is another collision. Like that, this hash function which I am using H1 is nothing but x modulo division 599, but you should define this x also. I am defining this x in such a way that I just want to add the ASCII values of each and every character inside the string, right? So this particular hash function which I am defining H1 is not up to the mark. Why? Because it is not equally distributing. Of course it is satisfying the first property. What is the first property? Easy to compute. But the second property is not satisfied, which is uniform distribution, right? EC stands for easy to compute. It is being satisfied by this hash1 function, but uniform distribution is not happening, and it should have less collisions. But if you keep on changing the characters from here, you will get lot of collisions. So the second and third property is not being satisfied by the hash function H1. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now let us define another hash function H2. I am defining H2 as x modulo the table size. Now I am taking it as 2069. It is not mandatory that you take it as 2069. You can take it as 599 also. Nothing wrong in it, right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
But
sir.
this time what I am doing is I should define this x. It is an integer value which is equivalent to the characters that form the string, right? This time I am not adding only the ASCII values. I am not adding the ASCII values explicitly. What I am doing is I am just preparing one number such that I add the position or I append the position to the ASCII value, right? For example, you take this A, B, C, D, E, F. A, what is the ASCII value of A?
97.
97.
What is the position in this string? It is occupying the first position, right? So I append the position of the character in the string with the ASCII value. So the A is occupying the first position, this is position, and I am appending it to the ASCII value. So I get an equivalent number for A as 971. And what about B? It is a combination of ASCII value and position. The ASCII value of B is 98 and the position is 2. And the C is occupying the third position. Therefore, when I combine the position of C with the ASCII values, I get 993. And what about D? It is occupying the fourth position and the ASCII value is 100. Therefore, I get the value as 1004. And for the E, it is occupying the fifth position with an ASCII value of 101. When I combine these two values, I get 1015. Similarly, for F, I get the equivalent number as 1026. Now, if I add all these numbers, 971 plus 982 plus 993 and so on up to 1026. Modular division table size. Here I am taking the table size as 2069. No doubt you can take it as 599 or whatever number you can. But it is better you take the number as a prime number, and if you take the table size as the large table, then you will not get those many collisions, right? So the result which I get from this particular calculation is 38. So I need to insert this A, B, C, D, E, F at the position 38. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now coming to the second string, it is B, C, D, E, F, A. Now you can observe here that B is having an equivalent number of 98 combined with its position number 1. So it becomes 981. Similarly, C is combined with 9. It is position 2 and it becomes 992. So if you observe this A, it is kept at the last position, that is it is occupying the sixth position. Therefore, when I combine it with the ASCII values, I am getting it as 976. Now I get different values from that of the previous string. Am I right or not? So if I combine all these values and modulo operate with the size 2069, I get the index number as 23. and similarly if I take this string, I get the index number as 14, and for this I am getting the index number as 11. So I get different keys for different for all these 4 strings. So this is considered to be a good hash function, right? So it is satisfying the first property, that is easy computation, and it is also satisfying the equal distribution, and it is also satisfying the less collisions, right? Since this particular hash function is satisfying these 3 properties, we can consider it as a good hash function. Is it clear up to this point? You might be learning here how you can convert a given string into an integer, and then how you can apply the hash function on the strings. Is it clear? Shall I move to the other slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. And this is the simple topic related to hash table. Very simple topic, right? What is hash table means? A hash table is nothing but a data structure that is used to store the key value pairs. I discussed this particular definition in the earlier slide also. So whenever you want to store the values using hashing, you apply the hash function so that you will get a key. So we get, for each and every value, we get a key uniquely. So we get key value pairs in hashing. I need to store these values with respect to these keys. So I need to have a data structure to store these key value pairs. So that data structure where I am going to store the key value pairs, I call it as the hash table, right? So in general we will make use of the arrays as the hash table. We will use the linked list also when I go through the next slide. Next topic we will discuss how we can use the linked list also, but basically we will make use of the arrays for the hash table, which is very convenient for us, right? So what are keys? So whatever hash function you apply on these values, you will be getting the keys, but you don't need to have the separate storage for these keys. Why? Because if you use the arrays concept, by default the compiler will be allocating the index number by which you can access the values in the arrays. So you can make use of the indices. You can make use of the indices concept in the array as the keys. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So that particular hash table provides direct access to the objects based on a key. That is the purpose of what we call it as indexing, right? In arrays, is it possible to have the random access of the elements?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is possible. How you can randomly access the elements of the array?
With index number, sir. A of
By
0, A
using
of
index
9,
number,
A of
right?
10.
So if I want to access the 5th element, I access it by using A of 4. Right, I access it by using A of 4. Similarly here also the concept is similar, right? When you are applying the hash function, you will get a key. That particular key is used to search or to perform a search operation efficiently, right? So if you have the key, you can directly go to that particular key and you can get the element directly. So this is the main purpose of hashing, where you want to improve the performance of the search operation. So you will generate the key while you insert, and while you want to search or perform a delete operation, you will be applying the same hash function so that you will get a key, and based upon the key you directly go and access the value. So this is the main purpose of the hashing. This we have discussed in the earlier class also, right? So this particular hash table provides the direct access to objects which are nothing but values based on a key, right? This key can be either an unique integer, right? So you can make use of the SID, social identity number, or in India we call it as Aadhaar number. You can make use of a telephone number which is also unique, and SSN, social security number, right? And you can use a bank account number. Like that, you have number of things which you come across in your life which are unique for each and every individual, right? Account number is unique, telephone number will be unique, and Aadhaar number will be unique, SSN number will be unique, PAN card will be unique, the passport number will be unique. So whenever you are making use of this unique hashing, you should concentrate on generating the unique keys. So you must have unique keys, and these keys are associated with a value which we are calling it as key value pairs. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So in this slide, I just want to tell you that hash table is nothing but a data structure which is used to store the values which you want to store. And one more important point regarding this hash table is the most convenient data structure to store the key value pairs is nothing but the arrays. So the keys are nothing but indices in the array. So these are the three important points you should remember. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So we are moving to one important concept called as collisions. Collisions, right? So we'll discuss what collision is and what are the various ways of handling the collisions. All these things we'll discuss. So what is a collision? And here I am discussing that a good hash function should be satisfying the following requirements. This also we have discussed. It should be very simple and it should execute quickly and it should distribute the keys equitably. And the third requirement is it should have
Less number of collisions.
less collisions, right? And remember that, as I told in the earlier class also, you can never avoid the collisions. Never ever, whatever size you take. But how can you avoid collisions means there is a method. Right? For example, you have only 10 keys. You have only 10 keys and you want to store them inside a array. You take the array size as a large size, right? You take the array size as 100. In such case, there is a possibility that you can avoid the collisions. But in real life, you will not be dealing with a limited data set of values. You will have large number of values or large set of values you will have. So in order to store those set of values, whatever size of array you take, there is almost there is a very good probability that you will have collisions. That is the reason why I am saying that it is impossible to avoid collisions, right? So collisions will definitely occur. This is the point I want to tell you, right? Collisions will definitely occur, and that is the reason why there should be some mechanisms to handle those collisions. I know that collision will occur, but that is the reason why I should have some mechanisms or some techniques to handle those collisions. So whenever a collision occurs, I should keep that value in some other location. So how I am going to deal all these things? That is called the collision handling mechanisms. When collision occurs, how we are going to deal with that collision is called as collision handling mechanisms. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So collision is nothing but when two values result in generating the same hash key, that particular situation we call it as the collision. So when more than one value is resulting in generation of the same key, we call it as a collision. As I told that you can never avoid the collisions, but you can take measures to lessen the collisions, right? So in the previous example also I have given one example that we take a string, and if you take the ASCII values and add it, we will get, for this one the result will be same. That means the value that I generate from this string will be same. For this BA AB and AB BA, both are same, right? So here is how the collision occurs. But as I told that collision will definitely occur, and you should have some mechanisms to handle the collisions, right? So if a collision occurs, for example, assume that this is resulting in some value x, and this ABBA is also resulting in x. So collision has occurred. whenever collision occurs, you should have a technique so that the collided string should be stored in some other location, right? You should not neglect the another string. For example, as a first step, I got BAAB. I have calculated and assumed that the key that is generated is K, and after that I got the another string ABBA. This time the value corresponding to this ABBA is X and the resultant key is also K. So I should not neglect this one. Never ever lose these values, right? It is mandatory that you should store all the strings inside the hash table. So when a collision occurs, there should be a provision to make the collided values to be stored in some other location. So how you are going to specify, what mechanism you are specifying, all these things relates to the collision handling mechanisms. Is it clear? Very important topic in hashing.
Yes, sir.
So there are
Yes, sir.
basically two methods of collision handling, right? The first one we call it as the open addressing, and the second one we call it as the separate chaining, right? Open addressing, only two methods for collision handling: open addressing and separate chaining. But the open addressing is again categorized into three parts. One is the linear probing, second one is the quadratic probing, and third one is the double hashing, right? There are no categories under this separate chaining. So collision resolution techniques or collision resolution mechanisms is divided into two parts. One is the open addressing and another one is the separate chaining. Again, this open addressing is divided into three parts. One is the linear probing, second one is the quadratic probing, and the third one is the double hashing, right? Is it clear? We'll see one each and everything in a while, right? So what do you mean by open addressing? Means the difference between these two techniques is we will have separate locations for the values in the open addressing. That means even though you get a collision, you will allocate them in the same hash table in a different location. But in separate chaining, what you will do is when a collision occurs, you will form a chain of values for the same key, right? So here in the open addressing, you have different locations in the same hash table, but in separate chaining, you will have the same location for all the collided values. That is called as separate chain. But why it has given as separate chaining means you will form a chain of values for the same location. We'll see with an example, then it will be clear. Is it clear up to this point? Only two collision handling mechanisms. One is open addressing and second one is the separate chaining. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. As I told that in open addressing, all the elements or all the values are stored in the same hash table itself. You won't give any separate chain, or you won't form any separate linked list, or you won't make use of another data structure to store these values. You will have one single hash table, and whenever you have a collision, you will store all the values in the hash table only, right? So this is called as an open addressing. And what are the various categories in open addressing? We have
Linear probing, quadratic probing, double
linear probing,
double
quadratic probing, and double hashing, right? What do you mean by probing? What do you mean by probing?
Searching.
Maybe it is searching, or it is requesting, or something like that. Okay, searching is okay.
It's like to find something.
Yeah, to find or to search or something like that, right? So what do you understand by the term linear probing?
linear search.
Super, right? It is something similar to that of a linear search. let us take this example. These are the set of values, and what is the size of this data structure I have taken, the hash table?
9.
It's not 9, let us take it as 10, right? So the hash function which I am using is simple x modulo table size, which is 10, right? Now tell me, what is the key that is generated for 11?
1, sir.
1,
1.
sir.
So I store it here. Now take the second value, 21. What is the key?
1, sir.
1, sir.
1. So I need to, here I have a collision between this 11 and 21. So according to the linear probing, you need to linearly search for a vacant position in the hash table only. So if 1 is full, the index 1 is full, so I should linearly search the next elements. So what is the next element I need to search? What is the next vacant position I have?
2, sir.
2, sir.
After 1 I need to go and search 2. It is vacant, therefore I insert 2 here, 21 here. Now go to the third one. What is happening here? What is the key?
2, sir.
It is 2.
2, sir.
But the location 2 is already occupied. Therefore, according to the linear probing, you need to search for the next element, and if it is vacant, you just insert that element. Right. And what is the next one? 43. It generates a key called
3.
but it is already occupied. Therefore, you take the next, or you search the next location. If it is vacant, then you should insert it. Right. Now tell me, what is 55? What is the key for 55?
5, sir.
5. Is it vacant or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you insert it. Now tell me 67.
7, sir.
7, sir.
67. Let us take one more key, right? 91. Now tell me, what is the key for 91?
1, sir.
1, sir.
1, right? You go and search the location 1. It is not vacant, it is full. Therefore, linearly probe the next element, next location. So I have searched this second location. It is already occupied. Therefore, go to the next element. It is already occupied. Go to the next element, already occupied. 55 already occupied. And here I get the
91.
empty
space.
location to store the 91. Right. This is how the linear probing is. So whenever you get a collision, you just probe the next element until you get a vacant location. That is called as linear probing. Simple, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Now let us do the same thing with the quadratic probing. What do you understand by quadratic probing?
Binary search.
It's not binary search. Quadratic probing. That means you need to search according to the
2 sides, sir.
according to the quadratic equation. What do you mean by quadratic equation?
Of degree 2, sir.
Degree 2, sir.
What is that one?
Equation having 2 roots, sir. Equation having 2 roots.
Okay, don't go into the deep concepts of this quadratic equations or this thing. But quadratic is something similar to that of some powers, right? You should raise it to the power 2 square, 3 square, or 4 square, or 1 cube, like that. Let us don't consider this 1 cube or something like that. Let us take it as 2 square, 3 square, 4 square. So let me tell you one particular problem. 21, this is 32, and this is 43, this is 55, and this is 67, and this is 91. This is what I got it right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So the disadvantage of the linear probing is all the collided values, they will be occupying the adjacent positions. Am I right or not? That is what linear probing is. So when I get a collision, I go and search the next location. If it is vacant, I just insert it. So if you keep on doing this linear probing, the disadvantage that will raise, or the disadvantage that you get is it forms the clusters. Right. So all the collided values, they are occupying the adjacent locations only. So they will form clusters. So the problem with the linear probing is clustering. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So what is
Yes,
the
sir.
disadvantage with this linear probing?
Clustering, sir.
Clustering. So all the collided values, they will be forming a cluster around that same area, right? So that will be a disadvantage with this open linear probing. This particular disadvantage of linear probing can be avoided by making use of the quadratic probing. Quadratic probing means it will go
So even
on.
the search time is big of n here.
Yeah.
So search
So
time
if the clusters are formed, as you told that the search time will be increased, right? It will almost reach up to big O of n. Yes, it is correct point, right? So the disadvantage of this clustering is the search time is increased to big O of 1. So in order to avoid the disadvantage of clustering, we are implementing the quadratic probing, where you are not going to search the next vacant location. You are not going to search in a linear fashion. You are going to search in a quadratic fashion. Example, let me take it. Right. Right. So 11 will be occupying this one, as you know, and again I got a collision for this 21, right? So I should act like this. It should be h1 of x plus 1 square. So as I get the first collision, I should search for a location which is h of x plus 1 square. So what is h of x? It is 1. H of x is nothing but the key that is generated. So if you take 21 here, it is going to generate a key which is equal to 1, but this time I am not going to search the next location linearly. I am going to use this formula and I am going to search the location. Is it right or not? So 1 plus 1 square, which is 1, so the resultant is the 2. Therefore I should store this 21 inside this 2. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So let me take, so in order to explain this quadratic probing, let me take another 71 in between this 21 and 32. Now it will be very clear for you. Right. So what is the key that is generated for 71?
1, sir.
1, right? But what is that it is happening here? 1 is already occupied. So in order to find a vacant position, I should use this formula h of x plus 1 square. Why? Because it is the first collision, right? So by this I have generated a value of 2. Now go and search the location 2. It is already occupied. Now it is not the same formula you have to use. Now you have to use, why? Because you have the second collision. The next formula you are going to use is h of x plus 2 square. Right. So what is h of x that is generated?
1, sir.
1, right? Plus 2 square means 4, right? The resultant will be 5. So now you go and search the fifth location. So instead of searching the next location, third location, this time I am going and searching the fifth location. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now I can store 71 at this location. Assume that there is another key inside this 71 and 81. Between this 21 and 32 I have another key. Now tell me, 81 h of x is equal to 81 modulo 10. It will be resulting in 1. But here I have a collision. So I need to use the first formula, first collision, h of x plus 1 square. I go and set the second location. Again I have a collision. Now I calculate this value of the index or key by making use of h of x plus 2 square. Here again I have a collision. Why? Because 71 is already occupied at this location 5. Now I have to probe the next location such that the formula that should be taken is h of x plus 3 square. Now tell me what is the value here? 1 plus 9,
10,
that
sir.
is 10. Is there a 10 location here?
No, sir.
No, right. So I should probe that 10 location, but 10 is not present in the index range. So again what I will do is, when I am moving out of the range of the array index, I can make them to be mapped into the index range by making a modulo division operator. That is what we have discussed earlier, right? So whatever value you got, you again modulo operate with 10. This is the second step we have explained in the earlier slide. So 10 modulo 10, what is the result?
0, sir.
0. So I am going to store 81 in this 0th location. Why? Because it is vacant, right? So here you can observe that once you reach the end of the array, or once you reach the end of the hash table, don't call it as array, terminology is hash table. Once you reach the end of the hash table, you again go to the first one. That means you are having a wrap around configuration. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So the quadratic
Yes, sir.
probing is based on the formula h of x plus I square, where I is nothing but the collision number. Right, in some textbooks you will get the formula like this also. It will be h of 1 and after that you will have the 2 square and 3 cube, 2 cube and 2 power 4. So each and every time you get collide, you will be using this formula. That is h of x is the first one and h of x plus 2 is the second collision, that is 2 power 1. That means when you have one collision, you should use this formula, h of x plus 2 square. So when you have the second collision, h of x plus 2 cube, third collision. Like that you will be using this formula. The formula is h of x plus 2 power I. This is also correct only, right? 2 power I means you are going to raise the collision number where I is the collision number. You are going to raise the collision number to the power of 2. But this is the actual formula you have. This can also be used. That is h of x plus I square, where I represents the collision number. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So can you observe here, for example, if I take the same sequence 11, 21, 71, 81, if I make use of the linear probing, what is happening here? 11 will be occupying the first index, 21 will occupy second index, and 71 will occupy third index, and 81 will occupy the fourth index. This is how it happens in the linear probing. Therefore all the values that are resulting in the same key value, they are occupying the adjacent locations, thereby they are forming the clusters, right? So to avoid these clusters, we are implementing the quadratic probing, where you will be probing the quadratic location, right? Here it will be 71 and this is 81. So you can observe here that clusters are avoided, or you are going to reduce the cluster size. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. What is your next hour?
Max, sir.
Maths, sir.
Okay, I think sir is there. Okay, let us stop the topic here. So this is end of today's session. Why? Because we have few more topics to be discussed, very simple topics, and then we will summarize in the next class, right? Is it clear up to this open addressing? I will again explain this open addressing, linear probing, quadratic probing in the next class with a different example, right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So that's all for today's session. Thank you one and all.